everyone, welcome back to the Bali Frequency Podcast. I'm your host, Bali Shah. Today we are joined by a mental health therapist, Prashna Shah, who has been in the industry for 20 plus years, both as a therapist and a consultant. She supported a lot of people quietly behind the scenes and also been of support of me personally. Very dear friend of mine. She's someone I look up to and care for a lot. She carries years of knowledge and wisdom from all the years of work and a lot of compassion in how she shows up for people. This is the first time that she will be speaking publicly about not only mental health, but her journey with cancer and how that has shaped the way she thinks and the way she relates to mental health, herself and to others. A quick trigger warning. At any point, if you do feel uncomfortable or triggered, please pause or stop the podcast and attend to yourself and look for support. Thank you so much. Prash, it's so good to have you here. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
Thanks, Bali. It's good to be here. Nervous as I am.
No. Oh, I think I'm the nervous one between us. Prashna, please introduce yourself and tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Bali. It's good to be here. As nervous as I usually am, I don't usually or at all do this. I find it very difficult to speak about myself, my journey, or even my work. But, for Bali, I needed to show up because she's been there for me as well.
So grateful. Thank you.
Thanks. So I am, as you mentioned, a mental health expert. I'm a consultant. I'm a change maker. I'm an accelerator. Those are some of the official titles. But one of the most important one that I do hold dear is that I'm also a mom to one. And I look forward to the conversation with Bali.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into mental health and what inspired you to follow this path?
I went to med school, and initially my first thing was I actually wanted to go into pathology.
Okay.
And people were like, Doc, are you going to be able to do autopsies and deal with that? And I'm like, I think so. But eventually mental health called to me and my psychiatric rotation came upon and we did the 6 weeks. And I thought, okay, this is something I'd like to do. But I also didn't want to become a pill popper or a pill giving practitioner.
Okay.
And so I said, what other way can I show up for people? And so I embarked on a journey to specialize in trauma and chemical dependencies and addictions, etc. And therefore, I now combine all the different variants of knowledge that I've had from school and life and having worked with so many people to show up in the positions I am in now.
Okay. And what do you feel like the journey is like? Something that usually comes up in conversation, of course, there's a massive age gap between us, is that in my generation, we are more open to mental health and we are very vocal about it, while during the time that you were studying and you decided to pursue this, it was taboo, if I may say. What is your opinion about that and the growth of speaking about mental health openly?
So, of course, as Bali says, stigma used to be and still is a big hindrance when it comes to mental health, when it comes to seeking treatment. Actually, not even treatment, but from diagnosis. And your generation and the ones younger than you are a lot more open to it. You're a lot more forgiving for yourselves and other people going through different things around their safe space, their mental health, their difficulties, their moments when they need to take time out. When I was going to school, and even the generation, maybe 10 years slightly older than I am, it was always put up, show up, and shut up, literally.
Okay, that's intense.
Yeah, and we weren't actually many practitioners when I was starting my journey. We were quite a handful, and now we're very, very many.
Are you happy about this? How did your family take it whenever you were speaking about mental health? As you were educating yourself, do you feel like they were progressive or it was kind of the same thing?
Actually, I don't think my family really did understand what I was doing until much later. They just knew I was going to become a doctor, and that was it.
I guess that's one of the good things, right? General, my Prashna is a doctor, tick.
Yeah.
Then whatever type of doctor,
they didn't really need to know at that point, or they never really understood it or asked about it. Although the conversation was almost always like, so how much more are you going to study? When will it stop? And then age, of course, in my time, you were expected to start seeing suitors and getting married once you're 26, 27. And then, of course, oh, you're married now. When are the children coming? Etc., etc. So there was always those expectations, which I also had to grapple with early on in my life.
Okay. I just feel like that expectation has not gone 26, 27. I'm still getting it. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon in the Indian community, very honestly.
I guess it's a cultural thing as well,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Looking back at different moments in your life, what made you realize the importance of mental health? Because it's one thing to learn about it and, to be educated and treat your patients. But internally, how did you know that, okay, this is something that's important for me to do?
I think it just spoke to me and I felt really comfortable in that space.
Okay.
And so, as my sister-in-law 2 days ago said to me, I think you guys in the family, all you girls in my mum's side of the family, are really very steadfast once you've made up your mind of doing something and pursuing something. She never used the word stubborn, but I use it. And I know once I put my mind to something, I will stubbornly, to the sometimes detriment of me, and Bali is a testament of this, sometimes saying, yo, dude, can you just slow down and chill? And I will be like, yeah, I'll rest when I get home, or I'll rest later on. Or for me, it's now my life. It's my vocation. I am really passionate about it. And I truly, truly enjoy it. And I walked in here, I think at 4 o'clock, I was messaging Bali to say, by the way, I know I'm running late and I don't know, but I'll call you when I'm on my way. And I walk in here and she's like, are you sure you're okay to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. Let's just see how it goes. And I said to her, I've seen 11 patients. And she's like, that means you've been at work a minimum of 11 hours, almost, give or take.
Basically.
Yeah, basically. And I'm like, yeah. And earlier in the day, I did take a bit of a break between moving from one clinic to the other.
That's not really a break, Prash, but go on.
Yeah, well, it's traffic in Nairobi. It was a good break. And I was thinking, can I push going for ward rounds tomorrow from 9 to 9:30 or even 10 o'clock? But I know myself, I'll be up at 7. The cats will be waking me up to be fed. And then I'll be like, okay, now I'm up. I might as well get ready and leave the house.
That's insane, first of all. That's intense. Yeah, when you walked in and you're like, yeah, I had 11 patients. And I was like, who in their good mind would schedule 11 patients in one day? That's insane. Something that I've seen and, I've spoken about in one of my earlier episodes is boundaries. So, in therapy, you learn about boundaries. And then when I did my Reiki level 1, it focuses on self-healing. So Reiki level 1 is self-healing, and then Reiki level 2 is like healing, distant healing. So that can be like another person or putting Reiki into something or someone. And in Reiki level 1, you learn more about how you have your own energetic boundaries. And something that I've learned is, I guess this is just advice for friends, not everyone has the accessibility for therapy, or they're afraid of therapy. And so they usually lean into their friends for support. And it's very easy to like absorb everything, right? So a new term, or I guess like a phrase that I am learning and trying to get more accustomed to is observe, not absorb. So handling 11, okay, you leave the profession part and like, you have your notes and your mental takes, but how do you gather the energy to go through the whole day, like mentally? Like, do you have certain things that, you can share with us on how we can handle, or support our loved ones and our friends, or when it's time to tell them, okay, maybe therapy would help you more. Usually if I have friends and, even though I am in this space, again, there's only so much that I can offer and I can help. And so I usually say, look, I'd suggest that you get a professional because I do not have the means to support you, but I know they will. So do you have anything that you could share with us? A quick trigger warning. At any point, if you do feel uncomfortable or triggered, please pause or stop the podcast and attend to yourself and look for support. Thank you so much.
Of course, there are many different things, right? You've asked several questions there. No worries. And as much as, yes, 11 is a lot, like I say, if you've shown up in my office, I would hate to say I have a boundary or a time limit, because just showing up is half a battle won, in my opinion.
Of course.
And so then I'm propelled to be like, so if you can show up, so can I. And if I have the capacity, if I'm able to do it, if I have the means, then I will do my utmost too. So, yes, boundaries are important, but sometimes the fact that somebody is sitting there, maybe in your waiting room for an hour and a half today, it was almost 2 hours because we had walk-ins who had to be slotted in. And I'm like, how do I say no and send you away just because I am unable to?
Of course.
So boundaries are very important, but sometimes they do become blurred. But the one boundary that I'm very strong and steadfast about is I try and not take my work home. I used to do it in my earlier days where it would trigger me, it would upset me, I would carry it home. But now one of the biggest things is I'll send a message home and warn everybody at home saying, okay, I've had a long day, it's been a hard day. If I do come home and want to go for a shower first, just hold on for 30 minutes until I ground, and then I can show up for everyone.
Interesting you say that, because I feel like that's also my coping mechanism. Intentionally taking a shower, I usually say, please get rid of any energy that's not mine, anything I've picked up, anything that does not belong to me, and I generally come out feeling a lot lighter.
So there's something that I've learned from Bali, and which she shared early on when we became friends, was that, and this is from her perspective as an energy healer, was wash your hands with salt if you can't do anything else as often as you can in a day.
Yeah.
And lucky for us, every hospital doctor's office has a sink in it, especially post-COVID. And so now I don't only wash my hand to keep disinfected, but I also wash my hand every so often with salt because I'm also just trying to recalibrate.
Perfect.
So that's something she taught me, which I've carried on, and now it's almost become like second nature. But I also use it as an opportunity to constantly be able to get up and walk, even if it's those 5 steps to the sink, get out of my chair, because otherwise I will be sitting for hours on end.
Yeah, your butt would be hurting.
It really does sometimes, right? Your back hurts, your butt hurts, your neck hurts. And ergonomics in a doctor's offices, even though we have nicer chairs now, it's not the best.
Okay, interesting. Were there any experiences or challenges in your own life that particularly made you passionate about helping others?
I am an only child like you, Bali. But I was also lucky and fortunate that I grew up in a very close-knit family. And my siblings from both sides and my biggest support system still are and do the same. And by the way, I went and had an only child. So my son is also an only child, but he may yet differ.
Cycle.
Yeah, cycle. He may have a different opinion. I don't know. But I think he's equally got a good support network.
That's important.
My girlfriends and my friends. Most recently, as you mentioned, of course, my journey and my war internally against the demon that I am carrying around is, as everybody calls it, the big C. And nobody wants to talk about cancer. Nobody wants to talk about the disease and what it means. From very early on, I realized I didn't want to be a victim to it, and I did not want it to become a crutch. Neither did I want it to be a thing that holds me back in life. So yes, I now am slowly becoming a bit more patient and showing up with grace for myself when, okay, it's been a long day, I'm tired, or I haven't had a good night's sleep because of pain or whatever. And I will delay my morning by an hour or two. But yeah, it's there, it exists. It came with its own complications, and the biggest one, the most difficult ones, apart from going through chemo, etc., is actually having 4 heart attacks in 8 months, in 1 year.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah.
A quick trigger warning. At any point, if you do feel uncomfortable or triggered, please pause or stop the podcast and attend to yourself and look for support. Thank you so much.
My first heart attack.
I'm getting teary. If you don't mind, could you just share a bit about it, and maybe as much as you want to, of course. And what was your thought process through it? That's incredibly heartbreaking. Like, I can't even imagine the amount of strength you need. Not even just physical, obviously, but mental and emotional strength to get through that. And if you could guide us or share how much courage and resilience that you had to keep going after each one, if you're comfortable.
So I had my first heart attack, strangely, was 28th of January, 2023. And I knew it was a heart attack, or something in me was telling me it was a heart. I was on my way to see patients at AAR, and vividly I remember the driver and my son, who was going for orchestra practice because he played for Safaricom Youth Orchestra, dropped me. I got to the Brood and I called Dr. Sheikh on his personal number, and he didn't pick. He was in a procedure, he was doing something, and he handed the phone to his associate. And she's like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a good thing you're going through. Just find yourself to the hospital. And she's like, I'm not sending an ambulance because from Aga Khan to Surrey on a Saturday at lunchtime, it's going to take too long. So put yourself in an Uber, come. And I start making calls to people who are important to me and saying, so guys, I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure.
I think.
Yeah.
Imagine just casually getting a call on Saturday. Guys, yeah, I think I'm getting a heart attack. I'm going to this hospital. Just letting you know you're aware.
Please show up.
What?
They did show up, the
Of
ones
course.
that I did call. And I'm grateful for these people, my close friends. And yeah, they did the ECG, and sure enough.
I'm so glad you survived it, because we would not be friends. I would have not have met you yet.
Exactly, because we met almost a year later to the date.
2020. We met in 2024.
In January. Yeah, almost a year to that date.
Yo.
Anyway, long story short, by August of that year, I was expected to have had a throat surgery, a total thyroid removal, because there are tumors in my neck and all this area. I couldn't because I was on thinners and anticoagulants and blah, blah, blahs. And a doctor is never the best patient for another doctor.
Fair point.
So I'm one of perhaps his most frustrating ones. And we have a very love relationship, because he can shout at me and I'll be like, yeah, shout. And I'll do what I want to do.
It is what
Hence
it
the
is.
stubbornness comes through.
A quick trigger warning. At any point, if you do feel uncomfortable or triggered, please pause or stop the podcast and attend to yourself and look for support. Thank you so much.
So yeah, courage and resilience. There was no choice. I have a child. I have a dad who's reliant on me. I had patience.
Wow.
So the question of courage and resilience, there was no question. I had no choice. So yeah, that is what it was.
4. 1 year.
8 months. Not
4
even a
and
year.
8 months. Oh my God, by the time you're
September
processing
2023, I had 31st of August was my 4th one. Literally 31st of August.
Oh my gosh.
And he kept me in hospital for 23 consecutive days. And because they needed me in hospital, because we needed to get rid of all these bad guys. And they needed to monitor me as they wean me off thinners and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody was like, how are you going to survive 23 days in a hospital? And I remember I had this luminous yellow band from Aga Khan that read fall risk.
I've seen that band before.
Yes, you have. And I'd be like, I just want to go for a walk. Let me walk Princess Zara or somewhere. And the nurses would be like, no, doc, you can't. You're going to fall. We're scared. But that was very limited time in Princess Zara. Dr. Sheikh kept me in HDU, which I almost literally 24 hours into my stay in HDU was pulling my hair out because I was frustrated staying in the HDU. And I told him, nothing will kill me, but this living in HDU will
get me out. Get me out.
So he would move me between CCU, Princess Zara, cardiac care unit, Princess Zara. Eventually I said, keep me in one space. Please give me a break.
Of course.
So when I was moved to Princess Zara, it really felt like a holiday. Somebody mentioned to the doctor one day on a Sunday when they were doing ward visits, that she's been here. It seems like she's on a holiday. And the doc sat down on my bed and gave that individual a telling off.
Amen.
And saying, it may seem like a holiday to you, but she's got a serious multiple conditions. So it's not a holiday.
Of course.
But yeah, it did feel like because I was now not connected to monitors permanently. I was allowed to have showers. I was allowed to wash my hair. Oh my God. Who would think washing hair is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
But then I remember that even when you have a flu and you have a shower and wash your hair, you suddenly just feel better.
It's true.
But yeah, so that's some of these are things that now I take with me and carry when I'm seeing my own patients. Treatment places and treatment rooms, perhaps a little kinder.
I think it also helps you see your patients differently because you're still a patient, right? Cancer patient, your own patients. You would have more compassion for them. And I guess that's also where like your caring nature comes in. Like today you couldn't refuse any of the 11 patients who walked in because you're like, I could have easily been one of the patients. And the last thing I want is to be told, no,
That
we're
I'm done.
full or we're not available or whatever it may be. A quick trigger warning. At any point, if you do feel uncomfortable or triggered, please pause or stop the podcast and attend to yourself and look for support. Thank you so much. I would like to just rewind a bit more further down the line. Like, when did you find out you have cancer, and how was that experience of finding out about it and coming to terms with it?
So I lost my mom April 2021, and my first I had a stage 0 diagnosis way back in.
What's that?
So I noticed a lump in my right armpit way back in 2017.
Okay.
And we did a surgery to remove the lump. And it was at that point biopsied and said to be stage 0. So those that don't know or may not be that familiar, cancer is staged. Your tumors are staged. And that determines protocol for treatment.
Okay.
And prognosis. So in 2017, it was given a stage 0. I had a 6-week recovery after that lumpectomy was done. But I felt okay and I was doing all right. And I would do my 6 monthly visits, scans, mammograms, etc., etc., etc. Fast forward to losing my mom in 2021 in the midst of COVID and lockdown. And then August came and I got my re-diagnosis. And at that point, we had surgery, multiple surgeries. And we thought we'd cut it. But yes, I started on the regime of chemo, etc., etc. Being a medical profession, I was not keen on radiotherapy. Again, the difficulty of having knowledge.
At this point, ignorance is bliss, right?
Actually, sometimes it is. Or listening to your doctor is a good idea.
Better idea.
So you think, right? Anyway, so August 2021. And then it morphed into throat and then keeps complicating and up to now keeps throwing curveballs to me. And I have a running joke with some of my closest friends, including now Bali. I can go in one day from being patient to doctor. And that's exactly what happened a few days ago. I was the patient having my doctor's visit. And then I think in half an hour of leaving my doctor, I'm sending people a video, a picture of me walking into MP Shah saying, from patient to doctor, 0 to 100.
100%. That made me laugh.
But that's my life. And I think there are two things that drive me is my sense of dark humor, which I share with a few people, and distraction. As in my profession, I tell people should not be your go-to. And I'm the worst culprit.
Doctor patient. Like, she's like Hannah Montana. She's got the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
You keep switching between the two. No, this is so insane. Like, everything is insane. Mind you, I'm hearing a lot of this for the first time, so this is my actual reaction on hearing everything. But wow, I can't even imagine. I'm still in the 4 attacks in 1 year space, you know. Prash, thank you so much for opening up about your journey and your resilience, and I am so grateful to have you in my life. Like every single day I wake up and the first thing I do is I send her good morning message. It's more of a check-in. You good? You're alive? Are you okay? And this is where the dark humor comes in, because let me tell you, I had to prep her last night and say this episode will be difficult because there cannot be any dark humor. Okay, I think anyone who's gone through any sort of loss or any sort of like certain experiences, you just end up using dark humor as a coping mechanism.